computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mission Control. How are you all doing today? I hope we're all having fun. Everything just went silly in my office here. But I'm glad to have you all along. I actually put something up on the screen, so just a black screen there, because that's a little bit on the silliness there. Sorry, one moment. Sorry, my home automation decided to shut off all the lights in the office and shut my blinds, so it got a little dark in here and it was hard to see. So sorry about that. All right, yes, I have it recording. I had it set to auto start recording, so I won't make that mistake again. Thank you for reminding me, John. So hopefully I'll never be able to make that mistake again because it auto starts record from now on. So everybody, hey, we're going to welcome all back to Mission Control for the nice sunshiny day here in Denver, Colorado. Even kind of warm today. So I hope it's nice wherever you are on this lovely Monday day, the 420 that it is, and we'll just let all those jokes lie as they are, especially since I'm from Colorado. Anyhow, moving along, today we're going to talk about networking, as well as multi-user and backup and DMX Merge. That was the other one, sorry. I got a little thrown off today, so I'm trying to get back into it. So just have a little slideshow here, not to go into so much detail about networking. Some basic rules. Don't cross the streams. Don't give the same IP address to two or more devices. Subnet masks. Subnet mask matters. If it's a 255.0.0.0, means the first number has to match and the last three can be different. If your subnet mask is 255.255.0.0, the first two numbers have to match and the last two can be different. And if it's 255.255.255.0, the first three have to match and the last one must be different. Use only gigabit switches and nothing lower. Faster is good, less lag equals more data per second. Use static IP addresses, not DHCP. DHCP is for home internet. Large AS static is for bigger networks and is much easier to troubleshoot. Lighting networks are generally 2.0 or 10.0, and despite what some other manufacturers tell you, 2.0 or 10.0 are not required to run ArtNet or streaming ACN. However, it is considered best practice to use 2.0 or 10.0. But ArtNet will run on any IP you give it, assuming that the quality equipment can be set to those addresses. But using a 2.0 or a 10.0 is preferable. I happen to be using 2.0 for my lighting network today, that you guys will see when we get to that. So basic rules, we can set a static IP address in one of these ranges easily in Titan by hitting the 2.0 or the 10.0 button, and we'll see that when we get into the actual settings themselves. Types of networking equipment are going to be desks or consoles. Nodes, streaming ACN, ArtNet nodes, or like when we use Capture, the full version of Capture, it's technically a node. Titan net processors. And network switches. Two types of network switching you have: managed or unmanaged. Before I move on to talking about our protocols, let's talk a little bit about, we'll go into my rant about network switches. So managed or unmanaged in general on a network, on a lighting network, unless you're a network engineer or know exactly what you're doing, it's best to use an unmanaged switch, as this will present you less problems in setup and running it. You always want to use an entertainment class switch. This is because they're set up correctly for what we're doing with them. So they're you're not going to have any issues with protocols getting through or behaving correctly because it's all done for you in the setup of it already. These are really truly just enterprise class switches, but they already have all the settings set correctly to run right for us in our lighting networks. Now, Avolites makes a nice one, obviously. I think ETC makes one, ELC makes one. I think Chauvet's making one now. Just use one from a reputable entertainment manufacturer, as it'll be set up correctly. And besides, you really want to trust your $1 million show to a $25 Best Buy router? Have we all done it? Yes. Has it worked? Yes. Were we taking a risk? Yes. Just spend the money and buy it. If you're a network engineer and really know what you're doing, or have one working for you, use that enterprise class switch and get the same thing. One thing I like an advantage of the Avolites one is that we have a built-in UPS. So if power went down, you wouldn't lose your network. You keep your network up and having a lot better going for that, right? So just some things to keep in mind on that with network switches. Let's talk about the protocols we can do in Titan. We can do ArtNet, Streaming ACN, and TitanNet. ArtNet can support up to 32,767 universes. However, a gigabit Ethernet supports about 250 before the network becomes saturated. Streaming ACN, which is the SACN, stands for Streaming Architectural Control Network. Now you know. Or SACN, as everyone refers to it, can support up to 63,999 universes. It's multicast. However, you can use approximately 200 on a gigabit network before it becomes saturated. And TitanNet is Avolites' in-house protocol, allows Avolites to equipment to talk to each other between consoles, allows for backup, multi-user streaming, ACN merge, handle worlds, and separate users. So everyone wake back up from the slightly boring little part that we just did, and let's continue on into it. Before we get into ArtNet settings, let's take a look over here on our mobile display. And actually today I am using the actual mobile itself. That'll be explained why when we actually use the when you go to do the networking the consoles together, I wanted to be clear that we're using a different machine. So actually, before we get to the point, I'm actually going to go ahead and close this and reopen it in, whoops, actually want to run the launch that, not simulator. One moment. We'll just switch back to the mobile when you go to do that part. Easy enough. And then we can pause while I have a sip. Any questions I may not be seeing? It doesn't look like stuff is scrolling along perfectly right now. That's awesome, Sam. That your yawn coincided with my yawn on the screen. I know it's a little late for you guys out there. No, Brad, no Jameson, because that way I don't start forgetting that I'm live and, well, we all know I talk like a sailor. Well, now that we have the Titan Go interface up again, I am using version 11 point, or 11 point, using version 13. However, in this area, there has been no changes between it now and what is in version 11.4. So you can't see any differences if you're still on the old system. So first, we want to go to our system menu. So Avo plus disk on a console, or the system button here in the Titan Go interface, and we go and click on network settings. You're going to be presented with a list of Ethernet devices on your console. In this case, I only have the one Ethernet, and the Wi-Fi is shut off on this laptop, so you only see the Ethernet. So I can go ahead and click on it. And then it presents options with to enable DHCP or not. I can set the IP address, the subnet mask. I've also got these two buttons here. So if I wanted to directly give it an address, I can click here and just type in exactly what I want it to be, 2.0.0.99. I'm just going to set it to that again. I can set my subnet mask to 255.255.255.0, because actually for this network I can get away with that. I can then click Save Settings, and it would save those settings for me. And if I go back and check, I can see that it is still that IP and that subnet mask. If I use the 2 dot or the 10 dot, it will automatically set an address in the 2 dot or 10 dot range for me. And if I go back and look at it, I can see that it set it to 2.195.178.57, which would work fine, except for it resets my subnet mask. So this will actually still work in the network that I have built, because it did change my subnet mask. I couldn't remember if it did or did not, and it does. Or I can change it, so I can use that. Or if I want to click the 10 dot, and go back and look, I can see it set an address in the 10 dot range for me. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to communicate with everything else in my network since I have everything on a 2 dot. So I'm actually just going to set it back to the 2.0.0.999 because I know that works in my network already. So I'm going to leave it at that. I actually want to talk about DHCP for one more moment. I kind of glanced over it a little earlier. DHCP is the network. If you have a server on the network that will generate IPs for you, that's what DHCP is. Dynamic host something protocol. I can't remember what the C stands for at the moment, but that's what it is. Basically, it gives IP addresses out to stuff for you. Only time I think you should be using DHCP in an Avolites network is if you have a wireless router connected and you're trying to use your phone, because sometimes it's a real pain in the butt to put an IP address into your phone. So that's the only time you should be using DHCP, in my opinion. I'm sure you can find someone in the chat right now to argue with me, but that is my opinion, and I will stand fast to it. That is a terrible idea to use DHCP in a lighting network, and it is always better to use statics. You will thank me for it at some point in time, especially when you go back and you're troubleshooting. If you've got multiple things going on, it can be a real pain in the butt to not have static IPs. So we're just going to leave it as is. We'll go ahead and click Save Settings, and then we can exit out of our network settings. So that's basically everything in the network setting menu. Pause for a quick moment, see if you guys have any questions, and give you guys a second to catch up. Oh, and I think I broke NDI with changing that IP, so you guys may not have seen some changes that I was doing on the screen. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. And it looks like I'm going to have to restart that computer to fix that little issue. I shouldn't have changed IPs while using a network to send NDI. That kind of torqued her off there. So let's go back to our ArtNet settings. And while I get this computer back up online, we can talk about them here. If you go into your, actually I should have, see if I can do this. We go to our Titan Go interface here. If we go into our DMX settings, so we go System and DMX settings, and then we see in our DMX settings window here, we've got the little gear icons next to each different protocol type. So we click the gear icon on the ArtNet settings. We're presented with this window, and let me go ahead and switch back to our slides, and we'll talk about the settings that are in that window while we get that to come back up. The DMX output switch allows you to turn allows you to temporarily disable the DMX output. Continuous ArtNet DMX. The ArtNet specification only allows the console to only send out changes in DMX. This setting makes the console send out ArtNet packets continuously, even if there is no change. Always broadcast ArtNet DMX sets all ArtNet packets to broadcast mode, meaning they are sent to all nodes. Otherwise, packets address a specific node they are intended for, which reduces network traffic, but requires more careful setting up of network addresses. And I'll talk more about broadcast and unicast in a moment. Block RDM. If enabled, RDM traffic is blocked on this module. DMX overrun. Some ArtNet nodes ignore changes until they are sent more than once. If this option is enabled, then at least 3 packets are sent for every change. Legacy mode, if enabled, ArtNet is broadcast continuously from the console at a high rate. This may affect console performance. Ethernet XXX selects whether you want protocol outputting on this Ethernet adapter, or there are multiple adapters in the system. You can select more than one, and identical information will be sent on each one. So if we switch back to our Titan Go interface here, we can see all that in here. You can see that I have multiple network adapters on this computer so that I can turn it off or on each one. Even my Bluetooth is shown here. I can have it come out on my Wi-Fi, my ArtNets, or anything else. So we can see that all here. So let's see here, see if our mobile is back up and displaying. Yes, it is. All right. So we'll switch back over to that one since it's live. Then if we go into system DMX settings, and I'll pull it up on this one so you see it a little more clearly. You can see if I can turn it off on the Wi-Fi or not, or the Ethernet if I wanted to turn it on or off, and have it go through which one I want it to go to. You can set it to both the Wi-Fi and the Ethernet, or just the Wi-Fi, or just the Ethernet by turning it off or on there. So if we click the same icon here, oops, and I did that on the streaming ACN one there, but it does be the same thing here, sorry. Let's go ahead and click on the streaming ACN node one, and we can see what's going on there. I don't know, does that count as fairness for the drinking game, Sam, that because NDI credit out, does that count as a bad screen switch? So if we go back to our service, we'll talk about the streaming ACN settings. DMX output allows you to temporarily disable the output. We can turn streaming ACN on or off as a console for the whole. Merge priority, 0 to 200. This actually, I forgot to talk about something in ArtNet, and I apologize for that. Give me 1 second here. You have a mess up in NDI, and it screws up your whole spiel. So actually, let's talk about in ArtNet settings. Let's talk about always broadcast here, and the difference between broadcast and unicast. So broadcasting ArtNet DMX means that the console's just shouting out what it wants done, and whoever wants to listen, listens. And unicast is the console telling just a specific node, hey, I want this done. So obviously, not just shouting to everybody, sending a letter to everybody out there, and whoever wants to read the letter reads it, and whoever doesn't just ignores it. Takes more network traffic because you got to send out 20 letters to every node. Or as if you're unicasting, you only send one letter to just that one node, and you have just a unicast then, so you're just talking to that one node. So it takes less network traffic, but requires more careful setup of your ArtNet settings because you've got to, and your network has got to be set up correctly, or you could have more problems. So basically, if you're having problems with your ArtNet, you can start turning some of these settings on or off to see if they fix your issues. You need to set it to broadcast and send it to every node out there, and it might start working. And if you've got the network bandwidth to handle it, just run with that for your show, and then figure out what the problem is the next time you're in your show environment. So that's the difference between broadcast and unicast. Sorry, I skipped off that a moment ago, but let's move back to our streaming ACN settings. So merge priority, the DMX output enable, disable, and always disable the DMX, so basically turn off a streaming ACN as a whole. Merge priority, streaming ACN specification allows for multiple consoles to send out DMX on the network. The priority value tells the receiving node which console to listen to. Even if you get DMX from more than one, higher values take priority. You would normally use this to connect to a backup console with a lower priority setting. Block RDM, if enabled, RDM traffic is blocked on this module. Synchronization address. This changes the universe address for the synchronization performed over. Setting this to 0 will disable the sync. That's new for version 12, so if you don't have that in your 11.4, don't worry about it. It's basically just for helping with multiple nodes sync up together. I don't know much more about it, to be honest. And Ethernet XXX, that's whether you want the protocol coming out on one adapter, the other adapter, both adapters, whatever you want there. So let's take a look. Take a look for questions real quick, and then we'll get on to getting on. Joanna, can Titan identify and spit out the IP settings of an existing house system? No, that's not how networking works. Computers can't do that either. They can't just tell what they're supposed to be on. They've got to know it themselves. Jeff, is it pretty easy to link a tablet to a Sapphire? Yes, we're basically going to do that today in our little TitanNet show that we're about to do next. It was basically going to be connecting my Surface Pro to my Titan Mobile here and showing how that's going to work out. It happened when It's happened when the ArtNet or streaming ACN that more than one DMX line is missing. For example, DMX line through 12, but line 5 is for some reason missing. Why would that be? It's a hiccup in Titan. Just patch something to line 5 and it will magically appear. Or you can do a wipe DMX settings and then it will appear. Oh, not a problem, Jeff. You didn't jump the gun at all. Just you're extra excited, as we'll call it. I think that's catching up on all the questions. Actually, let's. No, because we did DMX. We did setting up our DMX, our ArtNet and streaming ACN lines. We did that in the patching module, so we don't need to go back and do that again. Let's just move on to TitanNet. TitanNet session types. There are different ways to connect to a desk. You need to connect multi-user and backup, or just pure backup. Multi-user allows you to connect to the master console as multi-user, so you can program. Backup allows you to disconnect, or allows you to connect to the master console only as a backup. Backup and multi-user allows you to connect to the master console as a multi-user and backup console. Hence, you're always setting the slave console, so you'll be taking the show file from the console you are connecting to. That's why the TitanNet is in the disk menu and not the system menu. Because you're basically loading the show across the network. Hopefully that gets it in your head that that's what you're doing. Is that you're connecting to you're just loading the show file across the network. So you don't look in the system menu, you look in the disk menu. I've tried to tell myself that 1,000 times, so that's the way I remember it, but hopefully you'll learn this way and put it in your head faster than I have and go to disk rather than to the system menu when you're trying to do TitanNet. Users we'll talk about in a moment. So let's switch over to our mobile show here. And we see I reloaded the Titan mobile workspace. This is just so that when we have multiple screens up, you can tell which one's the master and which one's the slave, so it's less confusing into what is what. So I'm going to set up a multi-screen setup here. And what we've got here is we've got Titan Mobile down here at the bottom left, and we've got the Titan 1, which is running on my Surface Pro, and I'm actually have it connected to a T2, but this could be an editor key or a T1 or anything as long as you can load up the software. And then we've also got, at least we should have had, it looks like Capture just went silly on me, we should have Capture up on our other screen there where it has the Avolites logo. And of course, it wants to be silly on me. We'll just, if it doesn't really matter. We'll just, there we go. Now it's up and running. So you can see what's all going there. I see Seb saying you can run a network, in theory you can run a network scanning on a separate computer to do it for you, but this relies on the devices being configured so that they answer correctly, so your mileage may vary. So yes, exactly. There are ways to do it, but I wouldn't consider them reliable at all as a way to do things. So, again, we've got our Titan mobile display up here in the bottom left. In our upper right, we have the T1, which I'm going to use to interface into the mobile with and basically load our show across the network. So if I go ahead and click disk here, and actually I'll make this one large size while we get it started with. If we click disk and then we go to TitanNet sessions, and we'll go ahead and click sessions view, we can see any consoles that happen to be on our network. Right now I only have the Titan mobile on. We can see its address, its software version, and what show is currently loaded on it. And here we can see our name of our console. In this case, it's Titan Surface. That's what I've named it. You can see the different IP addresses for the different interfaces I have on this laptop, as well as the Ethernet, which is the 2.0.0. We see our software version, and the show name, which is an unsaved show, because I just had a blank show on there, and his role is technically currently a master because it is not slave to anything currently. So if we click on our Titan mobile one, since that's the one we want to connect to, we go ahead and click on that. Maybe. Really? There we are. I go ahead and click connect down here at the bottom after I click on it. And I'm going to connect as multi-user. And you'll see that it starts loading the show file. And it has finished doing that. So now we see, if we go through our show file here, it's just like our other one. We've still got our groups and palettes workspaces, or this one that has a capture visualizer on it and everything else, and all of our playbacks, just like are on this screen here. We've got all our playbacks. That's our Titan mobile. And we'll go ahead and put the multi-view up, because that should be able to make a little bit more sense now. So we'll see that if I raise the fader on the Titan 1 here, like on this one, we can see that capture stopped working on both of the consoles, just to tick me off, because that's the way it wants to be. So pretend it's working on the internal capture. It should be working. Why you got to be silly here, Mr. Console? But we can see in the full version of capture, it's actually working. I don't know why internal capture decided to load funky. It's been doing that on the show file. I probably need to why do I have the internet? Why do I have IE on my console, Nigel? Because sometimes there is a problem with loading. There was a problem with the license server. Sometimes when doing a license through IE would work correctly and wouldn't through Firefox or anything else. So that's why I have it on there. It was finding a problem. I just never got rid of it. So moving on to this, I'm sorry, the capture's not working correctly. It's a hiccup in the show file. I think that if I get rid of it, I just need to restart it from scratch here. But if I group groups and palettes, we can see I have the same here, and we have the full version of capture working there. So we can see that in our mobile display, since I have that one on our T1, we can see that I have that playback up and fired. If we switch to our mobile display, we can see it. We can also, it looks like I have that playback raised, even though it's raised on our Titan Go interface over there. If I drop the playback, if I raise and drop the playback on the mobile, we can see that it turns off that playback on the Titan One on the Titan Go interface also, because it's basically shut that off even though the fader is still up. If we had moving faders on everything, the faders would actually move up and down, which is kind of cool. If I take stuff and I move it, like if I was to click, we'll do it on this one. If I click move here and then select, I'll just select all those playbacks and go to a blank page here, we can see that it moved on both of them. See, it's no longer on page 1 on the mobile. And if we go back to page 1 on this one, you see we moved them to page 60. If we go to our mobile and we page down, we can see that they're on page 60 also, because we're still in the same show file and on the same handle world with the same user. So that's why everything is still going to, we make changes on one, it's going to make changes on the other. And also Avo and back to undo that move. Oops, I do it on this one. Avo back. And then we go back to page 1, they're on there. If we go to page 1 on our mobile, we can see that it is moved back on there also. So it moved it on both at the same time. Sip. However, so let's talk about users. So that's basically how we connect consoles together. Let's go and talk about users for a moment. Usually when you first connect consoles together, they will be on the same user. That means as soon as you change a handle world or any user settings will affect both consoles, as we saw. If you create separate users for each console, you can then start customizing how and what you program. To create a new user, go to Disk, Users, Add User. To change user, we'll hold down the Avo button and then choose the user from option from soft keys. You can also add, change, and view users in the user settings window within the system menu, as we saw the other day in the user settings. You can change them there. When adding a new user, you can change within the user settings window the default options to make them specific to the user. Remember that users and their settings are saved in the show file they were created in and are not separate to the show file. If you'd like to import a user into your show, you would require their show file from where the other user is stored. So again, users are stored in the show file, not the console. So if we go ahead and we'll switch back into our Titan 1 display here. Excuse me, Titan Go. Someday I'll stop saying the wrong words. If we go into, if we press down, press and hold if we go into actually, we'll go to Disk, Users, and then we add user, and we'll give this username of Surface, and we'll hit OK. And then we'll go over to our mobile, and we'll do the same thing. We'll hit Disk, and then go to Users, and we'll add a user, and we'll call this one Mobile. So we can see that we have a user here. Now, if you look up here in the prompt area, you see the user has been changed to mobile on this one. And if we switch back to our Titan Go interface, we can see that the user is now Surface. Well, if we could see the whole window, because it's being slightly cut off by OBS here. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Stand by. Sorry. Heck. Make that a little smaller for right now. There we go. We can see enough of it to show it. So we can see that here it says user. We can see that it says user Surface up here. So you can see that we have changed which user we are currently using. So if we go back to our slides real quick here. Oops. So let's talk about handle worlds. A handle world is an arrangement of all the items in your show file. It allows the user to have their own space on the show file, enabling them to program without it being affected by the other user who's connected multi-user to their console. For example, this means the main operator can program most of the rig using the items that they only require, such as palettes and fixtures, while the secondary operator can program just the dimmers and will only have items related to those that are relative to those. By default, you only have one handle world called Mapping World 1. If you have multiple programmers on a single show file, then having each programmer have their own handle world can be very useful. This means that you can have only one programmer having access to everything, whereas one could only have the media server control, for example. Or say that you don't want your opening band to use your strobes. You could give them set up a handle world that doesn't have the strobes in it, so they wouldn't be mucking about with your strobes in the middle of your show. Yes, James, I see that I pretty much got your question answered about streaming as some priority. And actually, we will poke at that a little bit more later in this video today. Continuing on with handle worlds for the moment, if we switch back to our mobile display for the moment, and we were going to go into disk, I'm going to hit that on the console itself, and then we go into handle worlds. I can either select it. Right now we only have one anyways, so I go ahead and add a handle world, and I'm going to name it Mobile Handles. And I typed that terribly. And we're going to have it build off of Mapping World 1. And basically we see no changes because it's still the same as our other console. So if we go to our Titan Go interface on the surface over here, and we do the same thing. So we go disk, handle worlds, select handle, oops, not select handle world, sorry. We want to go and add a handle world, and we'll name this one surface handles. And I hit OK, and I'll go ahead and let it build off of Mapping World 1 also. So now we can see that if we have both displays up on screen at the same time, we can see that we have still all the handles look the same. Now, however, if I was to, on our mobile, go ahead and hit click move, and then select some playbacks, and move them to page 60, we can see that on our Titan Go interface, those handles didn't move. That's because now we have separate handle worlds. They are moved on this one off of page 1 and onto page 60. They stayed on page 1 on the interface here. Now they're still the same handles. So if I was to raise one of these playbacks here on page 1, we can see that it's still raising the same playback on page 60 because they're still the same playback. We've just put them in multiple places now, or we can organize them differently. If I was to do something like delete it from one of the interfaces, I'll go ahead and delete it from the Titan Go interface. So I'll go and hit delete and then double clicked on this one. We see it goes away on both displays. You can see I deleted that fader 2 there, and we see that is also deleted here. If I hit Avo and back, why can't I find back all of a sudden? We see that I undid that change. I can now see it on my Titan Go as well as my Titan Go and my Titan Mobile. We can see that it brought it back because we just we undid our change there. Sorry, I was reading some questions. We'll circle back around to that at the end if Seb or Sam don't manage to answer you, Joanna. We'll circle back to that because we're a little bit past that at the moment. If we were to say we started a new handle world, so if we go to on our Titan, we'll switch to our. Actually, no, we were on the right one. Sorry. If we go to our disk and we go to handle worlds, and we'll add a new handle world, and we'll call this one surface new. Okay, and we'll tell it to build it from an empty handle world. when it gets done loading up there, we can see that it basically made it look like we have a blank show file, which we don't. And all of our stuff's been taken out, but if we go to our show library, and we go to, we'll just filter it out by all. We can see that we have all of our, we'll do by fixtures. We see all the fixtures are here. Just moved everything to the unassigned category for this handle world, but all the stuff is still here. So we can then go to our, say we could do, we'll do move from here. We'll take all these stage wash lights and we'll go to our groups and palettes and put them on page 1 and move them to there. We could now use them in the show file if we needed. Now, all the playbacks and everything are also still there. So if we go into Open Workspace Window, Show Library, and we went to playbacks, we can still copy any of these playbacks out or fire them directly from here. Like if we put our multi-view up, if I click on this target-looking one, we can see that on our mobile it is fired, and we can see that in capture it is actually running. Or I can take it from here and put it on any of my faders I want on the Titan Go, and still use the fader here, and again have it fire just like it was there. Is that making sense for everybody, or are there any questions up to this point with handle worlds? Doesn't look like we're seeing much for questions on handle worlds there, and that's fine. It's pretty simple. It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty great if you don't have, so that you can have an organization of faders being a different way. Like maybe the way I organize stuff, like I always usually put my blinders usually always on fader 10. And let's say that I'm working with Sam out on a show and he thinks I'm an absolute knob for handing them on fader 10 because he loves them on fader 1. Well, we could just have separate handle worlds, each have our own user and have our own handle world, so that when Sam came up, he just changed the user to himself. And then he could have his blinders on fader 1 and some user settings that he likes. Say that he doesn't like, for a random one, filter relative palettes. He doesn't like that turned on. He likes that turned off. I like it turned on. So you can have all those user settings just for him. So he comes up, he changes to user Sam. He's happy hunky-dory. When he's done and I come up to do the headliner, I can switch it to user back to Cade, and then I can run the I can have my fader set up in the way that I want, as well as my user settings in the way I want, and we don't have to argue about it or write completely different shows and then load show files. We just switch the user, boom, boom, boom. That takes just a couple of seconds, and we've moved on. We got a few moments while we're still at Handle World here, Nigel. Ask a question you think that might help clear it up if there's a particular question you have for it. I guess, James, you can put the masters anywhere you want in handle worlds also, and they will change with the different user. So we'll actually go back to that for a quick moment. And we see that, we'll go ahead and put them both up here. So we see I've got this BPM Master 1 on the mobile on fader 9 of page 1, and it is on, actually we'll go ahead and load up a different handle world. We'll go disk, handle worlds, select a handle world, and we'll reload the surface handles one. You can see it's also on fader 9 for our user here with the surface handles. But if I move it on the Titan mobile here, if I press move and select my BPM master and move it over here to fader 1, we can see that it's still in the same place on the Titan mobile here, or on the Titan Go. If I change the BPM, of course, because it's the same BPM master, it's obviously going to change on both users at the same time because it is still BPM master 1. It's just I've got it on fader 1, and Sam will say he's using the surface. He's on fader 9. Does that make sense or answer your question, sir? I'll give everyone a moment to catch up, so there's always that little bit of delay. Nigel, that is exactly what you can do with handle worlds. And good, James. I'm glad that answered for you. So from that, let's go ahead and move on to DMX Merge. DMX Merge can be used in a situation where you require more lines to output DMX ports and other Titan consoles on the same network. And I think that's the last slide because that's pretty much all there is to it for slide-wise. And it is. So let's switch back over here to our Titan Go interface here. And actually, give me one moment here. Let me quit this one on here and bring it up here. One moment, sorry. Should have prepped this one a little bit better. If you lock the console, will it lock both? When they're linked together, I believe the answer is yes, John. But I just restarted that one. So I was actually going to kick this one off until it finishes restarting. Give it one moment here, and we can show that. All right, got everything loaded back up again. So we'll put on both of them, and I'll go ahead and lock it on this one. So I press and hold the Avo key, or right click when using the Titan Go interface, and then click lock, and I give it a code of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hit lock. And no, it does not lock on both. I was wrong. So now we know. I've actually never tried this before, so it does not lock on both. They are separate locks. So if I right click on this one and lock, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hit lock, this one's now locked. But if I go to my Titan Mobile and 1, 2, 3, 4, enter, it unlocks. So yes, you can lock them separately. It does not lock them both at the same time. I was wrong about that, John, and thanks for learning me that I was wrong on it. That's interesting. Actually, it makes sense that they don't both lock. When I really stop and think about it a little bit longer, I think it's best that they don't lock. The locks are discrete. The console locking is independent is better when I think about it for a quick moment. Anyways, so we're going to talk about DMX Merge. Now, when we're using DMX Merge, they do not have to be on the same show file. So if I just go to disk TitanNet sessions, and I'm going to leave this session on the Titan 1. It was an error loading the show. That's fine. It was a blank show anyways. So we can see that this console is not on the same show file. They're just on the same network. So on our Titan, on our mobile here, which I've reloaded the Titan Go interface on so you guys can see the buttons I'm pressing. If I go to the system menu and then choose DMX Merge settings, we can see that it has, oh, come on, why are you not seeing it now? Did I launch the sim? No, I didn't, did I? One moment here, I may have, so why is it not seeing it? Just to make me seem silly, that's why. Oh, dang it. Please wait, sip time. If it doesn't work, I'm working on firing up the quartz I have sitting over here also to have it work here. So bear with me one more moment. There you go. For some reason, it is not seeing my Titan, my T2 on the surface here, but we see that I fired up my quartz over here, and we can see that its outputs here. So in the streaming in the DMX Merge window, what we can do is we can take the outputs from other consoles on our network and use them as outputs for our console. So there's two ways to do that. We can say we want to have on port A of our quartz over here, we want to have it set it for streaming ACN, so we can do streaming ACN merge, and we have it come out on universe 20. So now any DMX is coming out of our Titan Mobile on streaming ACN universe 20 is going to come out on port A of the quartz, or vice versa if I had done it the other way around. I could do it here with, I think I can select multiple, and yes, I just did, so I had it in one. So basically, streaming ACN's lines 1, 2, and 3 are going to come out on ports B, C, and D of our quartz. Now, this will follow DMX Merge, or excuse me, streaming ACN Merge priorities. So give me 1 second here to explain those a little bit better. Does everyone kind of understand what we can do here with the DMX Merge settings, being able to basically use the outputs on other consoles? They do not have to be on the same show file. In fact, the quartz is on a completely different show file, but it will show the streaming ACN Merge. You can merge the consoles together through that. So in 1 moment to load up another console. And it was either I cleared it by clicking clear stream ACN Merge and select which ones I wanted to clear, and I cleared all the ones on the quartzes. So I'm going to shut this quartz off so we don't have too many troubles here. And let me go to Groups and Palettes Workspace here. So let's talk about streaming ACN Merge, since someone asked about it before, so we can try to explain it a little bit. So streaming ACN merge, we can set a priority to basically tell the node, in this case capture, I'll have it up here, which console it should be listening to right now. So we can either set this in the streaming ACN merge settings, or if we were to go to the show library and we looked in our macros, there are macros for streaming ACN priority here. I set it between, with the macros, 50, 75, 125, and 150. So we're going to go ahead and copy these out of here and put them right here to make it convenient to see them. And actually we'll make that display a little bit bigger here. Sorry. On this one here, we can see our streaming ACN priorities of 125, 150, 50, and 75. If we look at our streaming ACN priority, so if we do it in this one first, we go to System, DMX Settings, and we click the little ArtNet, or the one with streaming ACN, we see that our current merge priority is 100 on this console. And on this one, if we do System, DMX Settings, and we go to our streaming ACN merge priority, we can see it is also set to 100. So they're both the same right now. So we can see that, yes, these are the same show files on each console, but they don't have to be the same show file. This could be a completely different console. This could be a CamSys console and an Avo console. So just pretend they're two different types of consoles even. And completely different show files if they were. So right now, if I fire this playback, get them both up, fire this playback up, we can see that capture is listening to this one. If I drop this playback and I fire this playback on this one, it should also be listening. Of course it's not. Probably because I have, probably because capture link is, the project link is on. Let me turn off the link there and show if it's going to, now maybe now it'll start working. Of course not. So it's not going to work because the demo gods are not being friendly. Of course. So, but with streaming ACN priority, basically I can set each console in the network to have a different streaming ACN priority, right? So that I can have the I can set my mobile to be. So let's say we've got a 4-band show. Let me just start do my usual spiel. Starting from the start here. Say we've got a 4-band show, and there are probably definitely sips, Nigel. We got a 4-band show, and we're doing the headliner, and we've got our Avo. The first support is using a Ma, second support is using a Hog, and third support is using a CamSys. So when the CamSys guy comes up to do his band first, he can set his merge priority to, say, 200, while the other consoles are still at 100, and the rig is going to listen to just the console that's at 200. Now, when the next band comes online, and when they're done playing, and the Hog guy comes on, he sets his the CamSys guy sets his priority back down to, say, 25, and the Hog guy comes on, and he sets his to 150, and now the Hog will now have control of the rig. He can do his second support band, and everybody's happy, hunky-dory. When he's done, he sets his merge priority down to, we'll call it 50, and then the Ma guy comes up for first support. He sets his priority to 200. He now has control of the rig, so he does his part of the show. When he's done, he sets his priority down to 75. You come up, you can just leave yours at 100 because they've all set theirs all lower than yours, and now you have control of the rig. So instead of having to swap cables around and unplug consoles or replug consoles in, or change IP addresses, or all this other stuff that can cause serious problems in the middle of a show, you can just change who has the priority at the time, and they would have control of the rig, resulting in less issues. This is one of the reasons I think streaming ACN is a superior protocol to streaming ACN or to ArtNet is because of being able to have the merge priorities. I'm sure again you'll find somebody who can argue with me all day long, but that is my opinion of it. So I think that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about today. So let's see if we missed any questions, or if there are better ones, or if you have any questions, go ahead and start asking them now. Just to relay some of the questions, so people watching later on YouTube will know them, and maybe they have the same questions. We can make sure they're answered. Can Handle Worlds work for two operators using the same console? Yes, they can. Just need to each have their own user and their own Handle World. And that way, when they change to their user, it changes to their Handle World automatically, and they can move things around as they see fit, and then you can just switch back to your user and move things around as you see fit to keep you both happy. Yeah, Jay, yeah, set it back, haha, they're just going to pull their cables as the last note plays. This is true, but if their console's off the network, then you already have control anyways, because their console will drop off, so they wouldn't need to worry about that being a problem. But any other queries that you guys may have today? Can each user have multiple handle worlds? Tim asks. Yes. Well, you can have as many handle worlds in the console as you like, and you can switch between them as you see fit. Also, if we still have our mobile display up here, at least I think that one's the mobile, and not the yes it is, and not the other one. So if we go into we exit another system menu that we're in, I press and hold Avo, and we go to if we go into the disk menu, I do this entirely too often, and we go to handle worlds, I can just select a different handle world, and I can choose whichever one I want. I can choose that Surface New one if I so choose, and I then have that one. Just that was the only thing we did to it, and I can also just go disk, handle worlds, and then I can select any other handle world I choose to go to, including back to our very original one. So the users can change to any handle world they want. It would just automatically change for you. Whatever one you had last would be the one that will automatically load when you switch to your user. Does that make sense fine, Mr. Tim? If Joanne, if you're referring to your question about the why our networks the way they are, Sam kind of answered it. It really depends on why would you not need to change the IP. Maybe because they're using two dots and the address that you were on was it happens to fit into their particular system. It is really, there's so many variables to that. It's an extremely hard question to answer because I'd have to see exactly what was going on in that particular building. But yes, if you say I had my IP set to it's one here, we've got the 2.0.0.99, and the house is using two dots but has nothing on 2.0.0.99, it would automatically be just fine for that venue's network would already be fine because you're already on a 2 dot and they were using 2 dot. If they were using, if you come in and yours is you're on a 2 dot and they're on a 10 dot, obviously that's not going to work, and you have changes to a 10 dot or whatever it happens to be. The venue could be using DHCP, and maybe your console set to DHCP. Again, as my argument, I do not recommend using DHCP, but many people use it and it does work just fine. There's also maybe their network set up really well and they've got their DHCP coming out in 2 dots. So there's a whole lot of variable to that, and it kind of really just depends on the venue and the network settings for there. I'm sorry I can't give a more clear answer, but it's a case by case basis, and why it is for that particular house, I'd have to see how that house was set up, how your desk is set, all that to really give it a truly a clear answer. I'm sorry to make it so wishy-washy, but unfortunately there's no way to know exactly how a house has their network set up and how they don't have it set up. I hope that helps some. If not, you can always email me, or we can bring it up in the Avolites group here and try to talk about it more if you wish. So, do we have any other questions on what we've been over today? Hello, Jeff. So for tablet linking to the Sapphire, just treat the tablet like a mini console. Yep, just use the Titan Go interface, exactly like I just did, and just connect instead of being the mobile, it would have been a Sapphire, and it would have hooked up the exact same. I don't have a Sapphire here to show you that today, but if I did, it would work exactly the same. You just need a tablet capable of running Titan as the full version. So just like what I've been doing today is on a Surface Pro 6. It runs Titan just fine. I would use it in a show with a Titan Go or a Titan a T2 or a T1 all day long, and not even be stressed about it as a show. I also have used it as the quote-unquote super remote, which some of you may have heard me talk about before. You just connect it multi-user like we just did today. There's literally no difference. And so we can just show that again real quick just because we got another minute or two, and I feel like showing it again. So up on our screen, we do have the Titan Go interface running, and it's currently on the same show file, but we'll just do disk, new show, so it's on a completely different show file, just to make sure that we're completely clear about it. So we see here we've got a blank show file loaded up. On our mobile, we've got the same show file I've been using all along. So if we go into our disk menu, because again, remember when you're networking consoles, it is in the disk menu because you are loading the show across the network. So we go to our Titan Net sessions, and then we could just click multi-user, but we're going to bring up the sessions view to make it look a little bit better for you guys. We can select which console we wanted to connect to if we had more than one here. I already shut the quartz off so you don't see it, but if it was on, you would see it listed here also. So we go ahead and click on it, which one we want to connect to, and then click connect. And then how we want to connect to it is there as a backup, as multi-user, or backup and multi-user. We're just going to do connect to multi-user. And then we let it load up. We give it a minute, and now it is done. And we can see that we're now on the same show file. So if I was to program palettes or fire palettes or select lights, move lights around, whatever, it is all on the same show file and currently the same user. Actually, this one is on a different user because last time we had it open up, we had it in a different user. So we could change our user back to what it was because Titan was smart enough to remember that for us. So we go users, we change current user, we go back to the mobile user, and then it would be on the same handle world and everything else. So if we were to move stuff on this one, we'll put up both displays real quick. So if I was to click move here and select this one and put it on page 2, we can see that it did it on both displays. Again, they're on the same handle world, same show file. It's all together right now. And again, instead of being the mobile we connect to, we connect to our Sapphire if we had one here, which unfortunately we do not today, though. As many of you know about Kitchen Sapphire, she shall be coming back soon. I was finally able to get her down from the arena she's in. I just have to get her up to my new house and then upstairs so I can have her again. Just a point of clarification, when selecting fixtures from a empty handle world, do you have to map them? No, because it is the same fixture. You're just moving them from the show library to positions in your handle world of your current user. I hope that is clear as mud. But no, you don't have to map it all. So with that, I'm going to head and call it a day. So tomorrow we're going to be covering DMX Merge and useful features and macros, and lovely Mr. Sebastian will be joining us to help get master macros, so that when you guys try to stump me with your macros questions, I can just smile and look at Seb and say, Seb, why don't you answer that one for him, since he is the master of all things macro. If we go to our avolites.com/online resources, you can find the upcoming classes, not only from myself, but Mr. Gordon and Mr. Aaron for doing the AI stuff, and I think Sam might be getting on there sometime soon also. And we got the avolites.us with a training events page where you can go and see what I am doing for the rest of this week. And keep up with that. You can also go to our avolites.usa, our Avolites USA YouTube. Hopefully we'll have a custom URL soon for that. We have to wait for 30 days to have passed since I started it to get that, so we got a week or two longer to go before I can give that a proper URL instead of this funky stuff we have up on screen right now. But as you can see, it is there, and you can go to it. So with that, again, I thank you all for joining us, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Wheel stop.
Roger, wheel stop, Discovery. Welcome back. A great ending to the new beginning.